Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to be giving you a beginner's guide to Microsoft Excel. So I'm using Windows 8, but if you're using Windows 7 or XP, the logic of this tutorial should remain the same. Just a quick note that here I've got Microsoft Excel 2007, but I've also installed OpenOffice Calc. So if you don't have Microsoft Office installed with Excel, you can always use OpenOffice Calc, and I've actually done a separate tutorial. If you visit my YouTube page, or when I publish this particular tutorial, I will actually include a link to this OpenOffice Calc Spreadsheets beginners tutorial as well. So don't worry if you don't have Excel, you can always use this OpenOffice application, which is very similar. In fact, what I'm going to do is just show you Excel. I'm going to put that on this side, and I'm also going to show you OpenOffice. And you can see the design and the styling of the spreadsheets are pretty much the same. So just a little note, you can always use OpenOffice. I've done a tutorial, just follow that tutorial and you should be able to get OpenOffice Calc up and running, and there'll be a separate tutorial there for you to view. So let's continue with Excel. I've loaded Excel up now, and like usual, the first thing I tell anyone to do is to go to File, Save As, and save the document. So I'm just going to go to my desktop. I'm just going to save it temporarily here. I'm going to call it Excel tutorial. I'm just going to save it. So that's the first thing you should do. And really, this is a beginner's tutorial, so I just want to explain what you see, and we're going to go through some basic concepts. I'm not going to go too in-depth in the technical aspects, but I want to give you a good understanding of how Excel works so you can use that in your business, and we'll look at more advanced tutorials a little bit later in future tutorials. So the first thing you can see is across the top here you can see the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and it will continue all the way across until it gets to Z, and then it goes to double A, then A, B, A, C. And if you use this scrolling bar, you can see it continues to go across, and it's just going to keep incrementing, and when it gets to B, then it will go to the B section, and it's just going to keep incrementing across. Really, there's more than enough columns here for you to do what you need to do. So you shouldn't worry about if you've got enough columns. There should be plenty. And down the left hand side you're going to see the row numbers. So the columns are denoted by letters and the rows are denoted by numbers, and these will continue to increment by one, and they will go on for pretty much as many rows as you're going to need. There's going to be thousands and thousands of rows you can put into the spreadsheet, so I wouldn't worry about how many rows that you need. Now in this example, I just want to make it quite simple for you to understand. And I run a business, and one of the key elements of my business is to keep track of invoices that I send out to customers. And I actually make the real physical invoice in a different type of document. It's also an Excel document, but it's laid out as an invoice. But I need to keep track of all of these invoices. I need to know when I sent the invoice, who I sent it to, what job I did, what date the invoice was sent, and if they've paid or not, and when they've paid, and so forth. So it's important to keep track of that in my business, and I'm pretty sure it'll be the same for you. So the first thing we need to do is just have a quick look at this spreadsheet, and if I click on this little section here, each one of these we can call them a cell. That's what they're called cells. And when I click on a cell, it doesn't matter which one it is, you're going to see the row number, sorry, the column letter and the row number will get highlighted. So this cell here is F9. You can see it here in the left hand corner here as well, F9. If I click here, this will be H14. If I click here, this will be E19. So each cell is specifically pinpointed by the column and the row number. It's quite important to understand that. And these cells could contain different types of values. So for example, these cells here could be date values, and these cells here could be currency values, and these cells here could be just general number values. and there's different types of formats that you can apply to these different types of cells. Now, typically when you set a column to a certain type of cell format, so let's say if this one's going to be a date format, then all of the cells in this section will typically be a date format. And I'm going to show you how to format all of the cells in a particular column as well. You'll notice that when you move your mouse cursor in between two columns or even rows, I normally don't change the height of the row. I normally leave it as it is. So I typically don't change the height of a row, but I change the width of a column. And you can do that by moving your mouse cursor in between two columns and just stretching it or shrinking it. There's another way to do this as well. I'll explain that as we go along. So in this first column, I want to put a label in, and I'll explain why we're putting labels in here in a minute. So we're going to put the word date in here, and in this next column here, we're going to put invoice number, and then in this cell here, we're going to put in description. And then in this cell, we're going to put in cost. And to be honest, I've made one mistake there. I wanted something actually I wanted this cost to be in E. Now there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can either just copy it from here and paste it here and overwrite this one, or I can click on D, click on the actual letter D, right click on it, and then click insert. And it's going to push it across, and whenever you do that, it always makes the new column to the left side. So in here, I'm going to put in company name. So the logic here is that we have a date when the invoice was sent to the customer, we have an invoice number, a unique invoice number, we have a description for what this invoice was for, we have a company name, this is who we're going to invoice, and we have a cost, how much we're going to invoice. We're going to add a few more columns to this in a moment, but this is fundamentally what we want to do. So what's really important now is that I want to distinguish these titles away from the actual real content that's going to go below it, and that's very simple. I'm going to click on the number 1 here. It's going to highlight this whole row. I'm just going to make them all bold. And because I've clicked only on the number 1, it's only going to make all of these elements, all of these cells bold whenever I type into them. And the ones below, I don't want them to be bold, basically. So let's go ahead and do a bit of data entry. I'm just going to save this. Remember to save your work. If for any reason you want to make your life a little bit easier, you can always press Control S to save. Control S. You can see a little underscore here. If I hover over it, let's try that again. It says save, Control S. That's really important to remember. And another, really the main shortcuts that I always use in Excel quite frequently is to copy something, which is Control C, and to paste is Control V. And sometimes I use Control X to cut something. So we're going to use those shortcut keys in this data entry as well. And whenever I use them, I'll explain what I'm doing. So the first thing I want to do is click on this letter A. And let me just explain why I put these titles here. The letter A doesn't really mean anything, and B and C and D and E, these just are reference numbers, you could say. And really I want to know what type of data is going into these particular columns, each one of these columns. This is why I put the titles above here, and always go on the first row. So it's important to understand why you're putting them here. These just help you to understand what data is going in there. It's pretty obvious, but it might not be so obvious if you have 2 columns with dates in them, or 2 columns with costs in them, for example. You might have a column with VAT and a column with excluding VAT, for example. So you want to make sure you label them correctly so you understand what's going in them. With this date column, I'm going to click on the A. It's going to highlight them all. You can see it. It's just going to continuously highlight them going down. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Format Cells. And this little pop-up is going to appear. Here it is. And we can format cells in different ways. So sometimes it's just a general format, and that can be, that can hold different types of data. It's not really, it doesn't really have a specific type, but we know that it's a date here. And you've got other things like numbers and currencies and accounting and dates and times and percentages and fractions. So you've got quite a few different types of formats. But the main ones that I always use is currency, date, and number. these are the ones that I typically use when I do my data entry or I'm building an Excel spreadsheet. So in this case, we're going to click on date. When we click on date, it's going to give us different formats, and I tend to use this very first format. 14th of the 3rd 2001 is the example that it's showing you in here. And if you're not in the UK, you can always click down on this drop down menu and find your date format. So if you click on US, it's going to change, and it's going to have the day, the day, then the month, or the month, then the day, then the year. But in UK, we typically have the day first, then the month, then the year. And I prefer this format. It's nice and easy to understand. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to show you some of these other formats in a second and what they really mean. So let's just click OK, and you can see nothing's really happened. It doesn't look like anything's really happened, but if I click on this row number 2 and I type in the 12th of the 6th 2013 and I click out of it, it's gonna put that format in there for me. It's gonna format it in that way, and whenever I click on this cell, whatever I've put in will be displayed here. You can see that quite clearly. So if I want to edit this, there's two ways of doing it. I can either double click on this cell and change the data here, so let's say to the 13th, or I can click on the cell and change it up here as well to the 14th, for example. So there's different ways to do that. Now I'm going to show you a quick little feature here, and sometimes I use this feature. It's called series filling, and if I move my mouse cursor into the bottom right hand corner of this particular cell, you can see a little black cross will appear. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can see this little black cross appears here, and let's just undo that. And when I left click on that and I drag down, let's say to row 30, it's going to fill it in a series. So it's going to say that we started on the 14th, it's going to add the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, the 18th. It's going to keep going down. It's even going to switch to the next month, and it's going to keep filling. And sometimes I use this feature to fill in dates. You don't want to type them in one by one. So if you ever want a list of dates in numerical order, this is a quick way to do it. We call it series filling. Now be a little bit careful here. Sometimes when you do this, if it's a new spreadsheet, it's going to have this option enabled, copy cell. And if you do that, you can see it's only the 14th at the moment. So if you want a series fill and you see only the 14th in here like this on all the dates, then you need to click on this little tool here and say fill series. Then you're going to get them in numerical order like this. So I'm going to leave these here at the moment as they are, and let's just click on here and then go to the format cells again, and let's pick a different format, the 14th of March 2001, this example here, and I'll click OK. And you can see that the format has changed, the way that it's laying it out, but remember, you only typed in the 14th for the 6th 2013, so this is what you type in, but this is the format that comes out. So you can choose different types of formats. I prefer this just straight standard format. It's easy for me to read and understand. But in this example, if I typed in the 13th of the 7th 2013, that's what I'm going to type in. I hit enter, and you can see it's put the 13th of July 2013. So that's the formatting of the date. So I'm going to click on that again and go to format cells, and I'm going to select the one that I prefer. You can choose whatever you like. Okay, great. Now I'm going to save my document again. Let's just keep saving it, or press Ctrl S. An invoice number. Now, typically whenever you receive an invoice for something that you paid for, it will have a unique number in there, and that's just used for accounting purposes to keep track of which invoices you sent out, who to, and so forth. So it's quite important that these invoice numbers are unique. Now in this example, I'm just going to type in the word INV and then 0001. And the reason why I put 0001 is that we can go up to 9,999 invoice numbers before we run out, and then we can come back to 001 again afterwards. So again here we can use series filling. So I'm going to click in the bottom right hand corner here, drag all the way down, and you can see that it's going to generate the invoice numbers for me. Now this feature here I use quite often. If I want to generate invoice numbers, normally the dates, if I'm sending out an invoice, it might be on different dates and it might not be running in sequence, because you typically won't be sending out invoices every single day, unless you know, maybe in your business you will. but sometimes you may have to send out 2 or 3 invoices on the same date. So this 14th might have been really like this. You might have 3 invoices going out on the same day, but the rest of them went out on different days. But with the invoice numbers, they're always going to run in this sequence. You're never going to skip a number. So that's good for series filling, to make sure that you've always got your numbers in sequence. Now in the description, really what we want to put here is a description of what this invoice was for. So I'm just going to put in some sample descriptions. I'm going to say artwork here for some sort of leaflet. I'm going to put in website design in this one, and I'll put in social media management in this one. So I've just got 3 different examples here. This is just a demo of this software, so it's not really real data, but you could have put more information in here. You can continue typing and just say artwork for leaflet, A4 double-sided, full color. And if I click out of there, you'll see you've got the data. You can see that it's running over onto this cell here. It looks like it's running over, but when you click on this cell, you can see there's no data in there. As long as there's nothing next to this cell, if it's blank, it's always going to show you as much as possible in this particular description. So you can either increase the column here, and you can see more of the data, or you can leave it like this, and you kind of understand what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to copy these 3 cells. So I'm going to select them all, and you can either right click and copy, or you can press Ctrl C. So I'm just going to right click copy, and here I'm going to right click and paste, and then I can click here and right click and paste. Or if I don't want to keep right clicking, I can click on this blank cell and press Ctrl V. It's much quicker. I'm just going to paste these same values down here, because what I want is to have some sort of description telling me what these invoices were for, what actual work was done. And this is just sample data, so it's not really real data, but it's just a good example. So when I click on this company name cell, let's just save this work, save it. When I click on this company name, I need to put in some, I'm just going to make up some company names. I'm going to say ABC company, XYZ company, and 123 company. These are just made up names, and you can see when I'm typing, especially when I typed over this particular cell, it showed me the data in here, but when I click here, I can read the full description here, or I can just increase the column width to read the full description. Sometimes the descriptions are too long and you don't want to have the width of your cell too wide, so typically I keep it around this sort of size so I can read it, and if I need to see more information in that cell, I can click on it and read it up here quite clearly. So these ones I'm going to copy and paste them below as well. So I'm going to press Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and just paste them down, just like this. I'm just going to get this data in here, and I'm going to press Ctrl S to save. And then this cost is really, what you'll notice is that these 3 columns, we didn't choose a format for them, because we didn't really need to. If I right click and go to format cells, they've just been left as general. So the reason why they're left as general, is because they contain pretty much just text information, or they're a combination of letters and numbers. So there's no real formatting for this. So you can leave these as general, but this one has to be a date format. And this one here, we're going to right click on the column. So we're going to right click on this E. First we left click on it to select it, then right click, then format cells, and we're going to set this to a currency value, and this should be fine, and we're going to click OK. If you're running a different type of currency format, typically when you install Excel, if you're in America for example, it's going to give you $ here, or if you're in Europe somewhere, it will give you euro signs if you're in France for example. But here you can click on the drop down, and you can also select the different type of currency. So here you can see the $ for America, and it's got all the different currencies in here. You just got to go and look for it, but as default it should really select that for you. I'm just going to leave mine on pounds, and I'm going to use this default number value here. I'm going to click OK. and in this cell I'm going to type in £12.95. I'm just going to make these values up. Well, it's £12, let's make it 95. Here we go. When I click out of this cell, you can see it puts the pound sign in for me, and it's £12.95, and it right aligns it. So if I click on there, you can see in here, that's all I typed in, £12.95, but it's put the pound sign in for me. And I want to it's really important in this example that I randomize the values in this cell, in all of these cells here. I don't want them to be the same. So a few of them can be the same, but it's important that they're quite different, and that will make sense in a minute. So I'm just going to go in here and just type in some random values. And this will just take a few minutes. And I'm just going to select these ones here, copy them and paste them below, and I'm going to select these ones here, copy those and paste them. I'm just trying to keep it a bit random. I don't want them to be all of the same value, and it will make sense why in a minute. So now we have a spreadsheet with a date, and this is really, let's relabel this. Date's a bit too generic, so we're going to say invoice date. This is the date that we sent the invoice out on, and I'm going to click on this A, and I'm going to say left align the data. So now we can see the data is on the left align. It's just a bit easier to read. If it's defaulted to the right, then these kind of clash together. It's a bit more difficult to read. So select it and then go left align. That's much better now. Let's move this in a little bit, and we can move this in a little bit as well. Let's make a little bit more space here. Just going to save this. So we know in this example, we know now when we sent an invoice out, we've got an invoice number, a unique number, which is important, a description, what work did we do, and this will be probably have a bit more of a description when you make the actual invoice itself. Remember, this is just a tracking spreadsheet. This is not the invoice itself. These are just ways of tracking the invoices in your business. And who did we invoice? You can see it's just a company name. It doesn't have the address in there. The address will be in the actual invoice that you send out. And the cost, we need to know how much we're charging the customer so that we can keep track of this information. It's important for accounting later. So let's just save this, and let's just show you a few features of Excel. So imagine this was, in fact, let's just add one more date in here. I'm going to click here, drag down, and I'm going to series fill this one. I'm going to click here, drag down, series fill this one. I'm going to copy this. Let's just copy this random one here. I'm going to click on this cell here, hold down the mouse button on the left mouse, and I'm going to drag across and select these three cells. I'm going to copy them and then paste them down to here. So you can copy data going downwards, you can copy it going across, but remember, if you copy 3 cells going across or a certain amount of cells going down, then you really want to make sure there's enough space, or you want to, if I select it from here to here, I need to really select this cell to paste it, or it's going to go a bit wrong. Just make sure you're copying and pasting correctly. Make sure the layout and where you're pasting it is correct. I'm just going to save this. Now, the reason why I put an extra date in here, because we started on the 14th of the 6th and we finished on the 14th of the 7th, so we can almost think of this as 1 month duration, 31 days, let's say. And really what I want to do now is, I want to say to myself, how much did we invoice in this 31 days? Now you can sit there with a calculator and add them all up, but that's a bit long-winded, and there's more savvy ways of doing this. And what we're going to do is select this bottom cell, this blank cell here. This cell's got a value in it, so we want to select the blank one just below it. I'm going to go over to here and click on auto sum. So we're going to select that, and it's going to highlight. And what Excel is going to do, it's going to say to itself, well, you know what, I can see a value at the top here, £12.95, and I can see a value here, £37. This cost is not really a value that I can calculate into this calculation, so it's going to ignore it. And it's going to look at them, and it's going to say, in here you can see the formula that is generated. This is going to, really what it's saying is this particular cell here, this blank cell equals the sum of E2 to E32. This is column E, and this is row 2, so this £12.95 is E2, right here. And as you scroll down, this is still column E, and this is row 32, and it's going to say add up to row 32, from E2 to E32. And you can either click this this tick here, or you can hit the enter key, whichever way it will work. So I'm going to do that now. and it's going to give us a grand total. It's going to say during this period you generated £5,669.95. So that's a quick way for you to calculate how much you generated in a given month. And if you kept on filling in more data here, you could do it for 2 months, you could do it for 3 months, 6 months. It's entirely your choice. So I'm just going to go ahead, click there and delete this. Now let's just imagine we wanted to work out how much we generated, not in the whole month, but in a given month. So we can see we started on the 14th and up to here is the 6th. And then it goes to the 1st of the 7th. So we're going to left click on number 19 and we're going to right click and then insert. And it's going to insert a blank row. Now we can click here and do auto sum and hit enter again. And we can see how much we generated in this given month here. That's another way to do it. And you can do the same here again. We can do auto sum here. We can see we in this particular period on this month we actually generated £2,608, and on this this particular month here we made £3,061.95. So I'm going to just click on that cell and delete it, and click on this cell and delete it, and then I'm going to click on this row again and I'm going to right click and say delete, and we're back to our original spreadsheet. Okay, let's just save this work. Now, another great feature of Excel is something called auto filters, and I use auto filters quite a lot. So what you need to do is, to use auto filters, you need to click on this number 1, left click on it, and it's going to select the whole row, and then you're going to go to data and you're going to click on filter here, and you're going to see these little drop down menus. I'm going to click out of it. You see these little drop down menus appear, and what they allow you to do is filter out information based on certain criteria. And the most logical example I can show you is going to be this company name, or there's actually a few other ones as well. So really what I want to do now is, in this example, yeah, I can show you this. So let's just click on company name in the drop down menu, and it allows you to sort them by A to Z, Z to A, or you can sort them by color. I'm not really too familiar with this option. We'll maybe have a look at this a little bit later. But we don't really want to A to Z and Z to A. We don't really want to do that. What we want to do is find all of a specific company in here, because you can see ABC, XYZ, and 1, 2, 3. These are the company names, and everything below it is just a duplicate. So in this example spreadsheet, ABC, we invoiced them many times over a period of 31 days. These weren't all different companies. It was just 3 companies, and we invoiced them on different dates. So when I click on here, you can see what Excel has done. It's looked down that column and it's found these 3 unique elements. The other ones are just duplicates. So I'm going to untick this select all, and I'm going to tick 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to click OK. Now it's only showing me, you can see the row numbers here, 4, 7, 10. So these are the row numbers where we did the invoicing to 1, 2, 3 company. And the reason why we're using this auto filter is now we can run another filter. We can run an auto sum. So we're going to click on home here, and we're going to go to auto sum, and we can see £2,104 is what we invoiced to 1, 2, 3 company. That's just a nice way to see how much you invoiced to a given company, where the data is quite mixed up because it's been invoiced on different dates. So I'm going to click on that and delete it. I'm going to go back, and we can click a different company, ABC, and we can untick 1, 2, 3 and click OK. And we can do the same thing again and auto sum, and we can see how much we invoiced to ABC. You can just continue that process, and you'll notice here you've got this little icon and a little drop down arrow showing here. It might be a little bit difficult to see, but this just tells us that this auto filter is actually in use. These ones don't have any icons on them or a blue arrow, so this one tells us it's in use at the moment. So to clear that, we're going to say clear filter from company name, and when we do that, it's going to bring back all our original data. Now there's no filters running. If we go to invoice date and we select this one, we can go to June, and we're going to unselect everything, and we're going to tick the 14th of June. And I'm going to explain why we're doing that. I'm going to click OK, and we can see it's highlighted the first 3 here, rows 2, 3 and 4, because they had the same invoice date in them. And if you want to work out how much you invoice on a given day, you can see it's £452.95 in this example. and it was invoice 1, 2 and 3, and we invoiced for these particular jobs and to these particular companies, these 3 companies. So you can actually check to see how much you invoice on a given day as well. That's another way of doing this. I'm going to delete this, and we can go back in here and we can just say select all again, but this time we're going to untick July and we're going to have June there only, and we're going to click OK. Now we can see how much we invoiced in June. That's another way of doing it, an auto sum. Now we can see how much we invoiced in this particular month. So it's quite flexible auto filters, and you need to experiment with them. But remember, once you've applied an auto filter, you have to unapply it afterwards to see all your data again. So you click on here and you say clear format, clear filter from invoice date, and you're back to your original invoice spreadsheet. So I hope that all made sense. It's quite logical, and we're going to continue to add some more data to the spreadsheet now. So I'm going to click on this row number, and I'm going to go back to data tab, and I'm going to untick the filter because we don't need that at the moment. We should remove it if we're not using it. And let's just save this document. So for me, this spreadsheet is quite informative, but there's a few things that are missing for me. And you know, this spreadsheet will be really nice to, we know when we invoiced it, but it will be nice to know when our customer paid us as well. So what we're going to do is right click on this column B, sorry, left click on the B, and then right click and insert. And we're going to say invoice paid date. We want to know when the invoice was paid. And in this G column, we're going to type in the word paid only. It's not going to make too much sense in, but I'm going to explain what I mean by this. So let's just save this. To make this invoice paid date factually correct, if you invoiced on the 14th, your customer might pay you on the same day or within 7 or 14 days afterwards, or 30 days depending on the terms of your invoice payment. Some people say you have to pay within 14 days, some say 30. It can vary, it depends on the type of business you're running. So in this example, I'm going to say we invoiced the customer on the 14th, but they paid on the 16th, so they paid 2 days later. And we invoiced on the 14th here, and it got paid on the 18th. And we invoiced this on the 14th, and it actually got paid on the same day. So I'm going to copy this cell and paste it in here. You notice this one I've got an error in there. I didn't put a backslash, so let's put that in there like that. And just to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to copy this one and paste it here. And in fact, let's just copy all of these and paste them in here. So we're going to say in this example, let's just save this. We invoiced the customer on the 14th and it got paid on the 16th. We invoiced on the 14th, got paid on the 18th. Got invoiced on the 14th, got paid on the same day. Invoiced on the 17th, got paid on the same day. That typically doesn't happen, unfortunately. When you invoice someone, they normally pay 14 days later. But I just want to make this document a bit easier to work with. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to change this one to the 29th of the 6th, and I'm going to series fill it like this. So the invoice date and the paid date are always going to be different. The paid date is always going to be greater or the same. It will never be before these invoice dates. It's impossible. Okay. To be honest, what data you put in here is going to be, it doesn't really matter too much. It's as long as it's the date that you put in here is either the same date as the invoice date or greater. So don't worry how it's been filled in too much. It's not so important. Over here we've got this paid, and in here we want to say whether this invoice was paid or not paid, and it's just going to have two values in it. So we're going to have a yes or a no. So I'm just going to randomize this. I'm going to copy the yes and I'm going to paste it all the way down. I'm going to say in this example all of these was paid and only this one wasn't paid, and just to make it a bit more random, I'm going to make a few of these no's as well, just to randomize it, because it's going to be like that sometimes in real life. Really what I want to do now is select this column G with the left mouse click, and I'm going to right align this data, and then I'm going to click on the paid value here, this label, and I'm going to left align that so that we can see the separation here from the cost here. It's going to be a bit more clearer now. And what we need to do is we kind of made one little mistake here. Really, this cell here shouldn't have a value in it, because this is telling us it hasn't been paid. So how can it have a paid date in there? It can't have a date in there if it's not been paid. So I'm just going to check, to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to show you a quick feature here. I'm going to click on this F column, left click, and I'm going to highlight these 1, 2, 3, 4 cells, these 4 columns should I say. And once I've highlighted them, I'm going to right click on them, I'm going to hide them. So they're not deleted, they're hidden, because you can see A, B and G, so that those cells are hidden at the minute. The reason I did that is I want to just quickly see these ones on nose, and it's a bit difficult to see the nose here and tally them up with the dates here. So now I can quickly delete these, and we can delete this one, this one, this one, and this one. All the no's should not have values in them. The yeses should have values in them. And now I'm going to click on this top left button here. This is the top left button here, and this selects everything in the spreadsheet. And I'm going to right click and say unhide. Now we can see our data again. So that just made deleting these dates very easy, because I could tally them up. They're sitting side by side. Let's just save this data. So now we're going to go back and click on this column 1, this row 1, sorry, row 1. We're going to go to data and then filter. And now we can do something a bit different. Because we've got this paid column in here, we can click on it and say show me only yeses and click OK. Now we can see, we can go back to home here, and we can click here and we can do auto sum and hit enter. And now we can say to ourselves, in these 31 days, we actually got cash in the account of $3,839.95. And we can see which companies actually paid us, which invoice numbers, the date that they paid, what date we sent the invoice, and how much each customer paid specifically. So I'm going to delete that. And more interestingly, we can go back to here and we can click no and untick yes. And now we've got an invoice date, an invoice number, what we did for the customer that we actually invoiced, how much we invoiced them for, and we can get an auto sum here telling us how much is owed within this 31-day period, and more importantly, who to be chasing. So now we can say we've got to go and chase XYZ company for 1, 2, 3, 4 outstanding invoices, and 1, 2, 3 company has 1, 2, 3, 4 outstanding invoices. So, and ABC only has 2 outstanding invoices. But we can now go and call these customers and say, look, we've invoiced you on this date and we need payment, and they'll probably pay. Well, let's hope they pay. Delete. And we're going to go back to here and we're going to say clear filter from paid. So now we have quite a robust spreadsheet, and we can use auto filters in many different ways, and we can continue to add data to this as we go along in our business. And typically in my own business, my spreadsheet's a bit more complicated than this, but this is a beginner's tutorial. I'm going to do another tutorial afterwards, and it's going to be just on bookkeeping, and it's going to be a little bit more advanced. It's going to show you more features. We're going to do VAT calculations in there, custom formulas, much more complex features. But I wanted this to be nice and easy for you to understand, so you get a good understanding of how spreadsheets work and how you can lay data out in here. What you have to understand is the data that you put in these columns, or what you decide to put in this spreadsheet, is entirely up to you. It didn't have to be this data. It could have been cost for fuel every day, for example. So you may have a car name here, or the registration car here. This could have been registration car number, the driver's name, and then you could have had the amount of fuel that they've used, or how much fuel they purchased on a given day, and then the date. And then you could have done a calculation to work out how much this particular person has used on fuel within a given month if you're running a company. You know, there's different ways you can use this data. So I just did this example because I thought it would be easy for you to understand. So there's really one more thing that I want to show you, and I'm going to make this is quite an easy way of doing this. And what I'm going to do is go to paid, and I'm going to untick yes and click OK. And then I'm going to select these row numbers. I'm going to left click on number 3, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to 28. It's only showing me the rows where they have no, so you have to understand that. The ones that are missing are all the yes ones. And I'm going to click on this background tool, and I'm going to highlight them blue. Then I'm going to go back to paid, and I'm going to tick yes and untick no. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select the number 2 here, left click on it and drag all the way down to this row. I'm going to make them green. And then I'm going to go back to this paid column and I'm going to clear the formatting. The reason why I did that is now on this spreadsheet I don't have to look at this yes and no column or the invoice paid date. I can see with my eye visually what's been paid and what hasn't been paid. I'm not too concerned with what's been paid. What's been paid is great, but I'm more interested in what hasn't been paid, so I know who I've got to chase quite quickly. And it helps me in my business, because if at the end of the month, if someone hasn't paid me, you know, there might have been a reason for that, but it's worth chasing up that customer. If you leave something outstanding for a long time, then it's more and more difficult to chase them for payment. So this is a good way of tracking to see who you've paid. And normally my invoices are on 14 days. So if I invoice on the 14th, I expect it to have been paid by the 28th of this month. And if it hasn't, then I know I've got to chase that customer. That's how it works. So let's just do one more example. Let's just say that this invoice here got paid. We chased the customer up and they end up paying on the 28th. So we're going to type in the 28th of the 6th, 2013. It's been paid. And we're going to go over to this column and we're going to type in yes. If you notice, if I type in the letter Y, it's already going to write the word yes in there for me. I'm just going to hit the enter key. That's a quick way of getting that data in there. And then I'm going to select this row. I'm going to make it green. And in theory, I can almost forget about this now. That particular invoice has been paid, the money's in the account. Obviously, you don't really check this off as a yes until you log into your bank account and actually check that it's been paid and you can see the money in your account. So there's many more features of Excel, and it's quite difficult to go through all of the different features and try and explain everything inside out, but really this tutorial should give you a good understanding of how Excel works and how you can use auto filters. They're quite a powerful tool, and in my next tutorial I'm going to be going through some more advanced features like making charts. So in this example we could have made a chart showing us how much revenue we generated on a given day, and we could have put that into a chart and it would have been much more visual representation of this data. We could have had a chart sitting right next to here. I'm not going to do that in this tutorial because I don't want it to be too long. So I hope this really gave you a good understanding of Excel. If you're interested, you can also go and visit my YouTube page, and on this tutorial in the YouTube page and on my blog I'm actually going to put a link to the OpenOffice version of this tutorial, and it had a very similar concept to it. So if you don't have Excel, you can go and download OpenOffice, and even if you do have Excel, I would still say go download OpenOffice. It's a free piece of software and it works very similar to Excel, and you may find a few features in OpenOffice that are not in Excel and vice versa. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and keep an eye out for more DCP web tutorials.